extreme heat results in more than 5,000 hospitalizations, 600 emergency department visits, and more than 130,000 outpatient visits, and nearly 344 adverse birth outcomes.
Welcome to Growing Impact, a podcast by the Institute of Energy and the Environment at Penn State. Each month, Growing Impact explores the projects of Penn State researchers who are solving some of the world's most challenging energy and environmental issues. Each project has been funded by the Institute's Seed Grant program that grows new research ideas into impactful energy and environmental solutions. I'm your host, Kevin Slyman. Heat can have significant and often overlooked effects on vulnerable populations, especially pregnant women and infants. Pregnancy increases susceptibility to heat exhaustion and dehydration due to physiological changes, making it essential for expectant mothers to stay cool and hydrated during hot weather. Studies also suggest that extreme heat during pregnancy could have lasting effects on a child's development, including cognitive abilities. For newborns and infants, the risk is even greater because their bodies are not yet equipped to regulate temperature effectively. These risks are further amplified for families facing socioeconomic challenges. To address these critical issues, a team of researchers is investigating the intricate link between heat exposure and its impact on maternal and infant health. Their goal is to bridge the knowledge gap and empower lawmakers with actionable insights to protect these at-risk groups. Thank you for spending time with me and coming on Growing Impact and talking about this project. I really appreciate it. So I want to welcome you to the program.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Can you introduce yourselves, provide your name, title, and a little bit about your research?
My name is Ruohao, and I'm assistant professor of agriculture economics at the Department of Agriculture Economics, Sociology, and Education. My research mostly focuses on environmental economics and related topics. When I say related topics, it's related to public policies, environmental regulation policies, and the environmental impact on public health.
My name is Kristen Schneider. I'm an assistant professor of public health sciences in the Department of Public Health Sciences in the Penn State College of Medicine. I'm an epidemiologist, and I'm interested in maternal and child health outcomes and very interested in environmental exposures that could impact health outcomes for this population.
Well, thank you both. This is going to be an interesting topic. Everyone is dealing with warmer temperatures. So places that were cooler feel a little more warmth, but places that were warm are experiencing even higher temperatures, and it's causing challenges. So your project is focused on human health impacted by intense heat from climate change, specifically in California. Can you tell us about the heat in California? And what is the weather like for people, and what health issues are arising from it?
California is, as we all know, it's located in the southwest of the country, so it usually be considered as a warm area with a lot of sunshine. So compared to the other areas in the States, the California is one of the places that we see quite frequent heat waves or other extreme temperature events happening. A report from the State Insurance Department of California has shown that from 2013 to 2022, there are 7 major extreme heat events, all last for at least 7 days with really high temperature and cost nearly 460 deaths and almost 7.7 billion economic loss in the states. In many different forms of economic loss, including the loss of wages and productivity, agriculture and manufacturing disruptions, power outage, infrastructure damage, and more. And the same report also shown that the extreme heat results in more than 5,000 hospitalizations, 600 emergency department visits, and more than 130,000 outpatient visits, and nearly 344 adverse birth outcomes. So the impact is pretty huge public health aspects. And in addition, the heat waves did not just directly affect the people's health, it also cause some, we may call them a collateral damage through other related disasters. For example, heat waves will also increase the risk of wildfires in California.
Let's talk about the overall goal of your project. Could you help us understand that?
Climate change makes extreme weather events more frequent, including these extreme temperature events. And the vulnerability individuals such as low-income minorities, seniors, children, and the pregnant women are usually more affected by the extreme weather events. So in this project, we aim to conduct a pilot research to investigate the health impact of extreme temperature events. We will also explore the socioeconomic disparities in resilience to this extreme temperature. Households can certainly use air conditioning systems to overcome extreme temperatures, but it comes with less affordable energy bills, especially for these low-income communities. This makes the impact of the extreme temperature disproportionately greater on low-income households. We hope our study will inform government policies related to the affordable energy that may help address social inequity concerns regarding to the resilience against these climate changes and extreme weather events.
One of the groups is pregnant women and newborn children, and that's a focus of this project. Can you talk about why it's so important to focus on these groups when it comes to heat?
It's important to focus on these groups when it comes to heat because maternal outcomes are important for the country, and outcomes in the US are disproportionately high. So, pregnant women are susceptible to extreme temperature. This is because pregnant women's ability to thermoregulate is compromised, and pregnancies are susceptible to complications at all stages of gestation. Consequently, extreme temperature could affect pregnancy progression and fetal development. This may not only affect mother's health, but could potentially cause long lasting impacts on newborns' health and well being. Because of the socioeconomic disparities, pregnant women from low income communities may suffer from extreme temperatures. Think about the potential long term impact on newborns. Despite the immediate social inequity concern we have here, this may also worsen the future social justice by amplifying the intergenerational transmission of health inequity. I think we should also say something maybe here about just that maternal health in the US is a real national importance. Our outcomes here in this country are worse than other developed countries. And it's a high priority for almost all organizations. It's a high priority for the country.
Interesting.
And so this is one possible exposure that could be impacting this population.
Yeah.
And why we have such poor outcomes.
In your project description, Ruhal, you already talked a bit about how heat disproportionately affects individuals with lower income. Is there anything to discuss to go in a little deeper, maybe take it one step further to talk about how lower income individuals are disproportionately affected by heat?
In addition to the less affordable energy bills and air conditioning systems, we do have several other factors that might makes these climate impact disproportionately greater to low income communities. For example, the house conditions. They're living in a house with maybe relatively poorer conditions compared to the other communities. For example, they don't have enough a functional insulations to block the heat or even the cold weather out of their house. And also, neighborhood environment is a very important factor. For example, if their neighborhood is covered by a lot of trees, then the whole area might be cooled down by this green infrastructure. But if you're living near a huge parking lot, then it can heat up pretty quickly under the sunshine. Yeah, and there are several other things. For example, their working environment. If the poorer neighborhoods are more likely to expose to extreme temperatures in the workplace, then it is another potential reason that they're disproportionately affected. But several other things. They're more likely to have some preconditions, pre-health condition, chronic health conditions. It makes them more susceptible to the extreme temperature.
One of the components of your project is informing policymakers and making changes that are going to be positive for these individuals. Can you dive into that a little bit and talk about how informing policymakers can actually make these changes for individuals?
We hope our study will inform government policies to help disadvantaged communities and vulnerable households develop resilience to extreme temperature. For example, different types of affordable energy programs, home improvement programs, investing in neighborhood green infrastructure, enhancing OSHA regulations to avoid extensive workplace exposure, and more. We think that our project has a huge potential to impact policy, and that's what makes it so exciting.
It's hard to tell those stories and for people to understand how challenging some of these things are because that knowledge gap exists. And so I agree. I think it is exciting that this is something you're taking on because it's so important. And I feel like that's such an important aspect of research is to fill in these knowledge gaps for not just, other researchers, but those who are then going to maybe take that data and use it in, some positive way to affect others.
Something I love about this project is that it helps us build a story through the data, as you're saying. And I think it's really exciting because the data that we're going to have and analyze through this work will be something we can use for advocacy to really help people. And since this issue of climate change and heat is really affects everyone and is getting worse, this we think our data are going to be really important.
The climate, like the extreme temperature exposure impact on health is kind of people usually expect. But the reason that our projects is important is we actually provide a solid evidence of that is actually happening, and we will give you a number of at what extent it affects the health, especially for the pregnant woman and the infant.
Yeah, so it's concrete data that people can point to and say, this is what's happening. Let's talk about collaborations and why it's crucial to have people beyond your own discipline to work together to assist in making it like a project like this a success.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So definitely it's an interdisciplinary project because it focuses on the nexus of climate change, energy, and public health. The reason that we need a different expertise to involve is because first it is interdisciplinary. For example, we need the scientific and epidemiological expertise to study how extreme temperature actually affect the human bodies in general. And we also need the social scientists because they can help link households' socioeconomic status with their resilience to extreme temperature, especially through their different behaviors or decisions of adapting air conditioning systems or how to allocate their incomes on the energy bills or other related stuff. And we will need economics and statistic expertise to analyze the causal impact of extreme temperature on health outcomes. That is really kind of related to what I previously said. This project will actually provide us a solid evidence of your health is actually affected by the extreme temperature, not just some correlations are there. And the economists can also help capitalize the negative impact so that we can have a very nice piece of policy information to provide them to the policymakers to know that, oh, if you did this, if you help the communities to build up their climate resilience, what is the actual benefits in dollar value? Yeah. And in addition, we will also need the public policy expertise to properly communicate our policy implications to the policymakers.
Can we talk a little bit about next steps? What are some next steps for this research? And maybe things that you're excited about, or maybe or challenges maybe that you're seeing for this project?
Yeah, so in the past several months, we were mainly working on two major tasks. The first task is we were working on the data application and the IRB application with the California Department of Public Health. So we are applying for the California birth record data, in which includes a very detailed health and socioeconomic information on both the babies and the parents. So that data is kind of sensitive. So this IRB and the data application takes long time, and we need to provide a very detailed information about what we plan to do on this project using this data. The second task we've been working on is that during the time that we are waiting for this birth record data to arrive, we conduct preliminary studies to investigate the impact of extreme temperature on county average birth weight. The reason that we do these studies because the county average birth weight is kind of a public information that you can directly find on the CDC website. So good news is our data and IRB application just got approved by the California Committee for the Protection of Human Subjects 2 weeks ago. And our immediate next step is to prepare for this data transmission and start a more comprehensive analysis using this individual level data.
Is there something that is surprising to you that you either have learned or are learning during this project?
We don't have too much results so far because it's still an early stage of the project. But from our studies using this county aggregated level birth weight data, we do find something surprising because Initially, we phrased this project as the heat wave's impact on the infant health. But by analyzing this county aggregated birth weight data, we not only find that heat wave has the impact on the new birth weight, but also the extreme cold weather. So both actually have the quite significant impact on the birth weight. And another interesting thing to find is that for the counties that have a relatively higher temperatures, for county in the warm area, the pregnant mother and the newborns weights are more affected by the extreme cold weather. But for the counties in the cold areas, they are more affected by the heat waves. We also look at all the counties and compare the result with the counties with relatively higher poverty rate. And we do find that for the counties with higher poverty rate, the negative effect is greater compared to the others. So that also makes sense and consists of our expectation that there is such a socioeconomic disparities on the extreme temperatures impact on the infant health.
All right. So this is the big opportunity. You just got in an elevator and a US senator or some industry leader or other world leader, whatever, some very important person steps onto the elevator with you, and you have 20 seconds to explain why your project is so important. What would you say if you had 20 seconds with a US senator?
Our project's important because in California, there's over 400,000 live births every year. And populations of pregnant women are more vulnerable to temperature changes and to heat. And due to this fact, we think our project is important because it's going to give us more information on the health risks to this population, including especially infant health outcomes like preterm birth and low birth weight. Our research will aim to provide the data to inform policies that can potentially mitigate these impacts of climate change, which is something that's happening across the globe and is happening in California. Our research is going to help mitigate the impact of climate change and help ensure that pregnant people can be healthier during their pregnancy and give birth to healthier infants, which will ensure a healthier population in California.
Thank you for coming on Growing Impact. I appreciate you talking about this important topic. It was a fascinating conversation, and I learned a lot about the way that heat is impacting these different vulnerable populations. So thank you both. Thank you, Kristen and Ruhal. Thank you for being on the episode.
Thank you
so much.
so much. Thank you so much.
This has been Season 5, Episode 10 of Growing Impact. Thanks again to Ruhal Zhang and Christian Schneider for speaking with me about their project. To watch a video version of this episode and to learn more about the research team, visit iee.psu.edu/podcast. Once you're there, you'll find previous episodes, transcripts, related graphics, and so much more. Our creative director is Chris Komlenik, with graphic design and video production by Brenna Buck, marketing and social media by Torian DeViro, and web support by John Stabinger. Join us again next month as we continue our exploration of Penn State research and its growing impact. Thanks for listening.